I'm back. I'm back. It's been a minute, but I'm back. It's like I'm returning like I never left because I didn't. I just took a break to work on other projects, quality content for my people. You know how I do. But let's get into the intro. You've tuned in to Seattle Connected, the show that connects you. Yes, you and you, with entrepreneurs, business people, movers and shakers in our community, letting you know who they are first before they become household names like we know they soon will be, right? Okay, I was waiting for my guest to say right, but never mind.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
Nope,
Yes.
nope, too late.
Yeah.
Anyway, my guest today is, wow, she does everything. She's all about taking care of others. You know, they say when a baby is born, and I'm probably not going to quote it right, but when they're given life, it's like they breathe life into other people. You know, whether they could be not doing so well, just the spirit of a baby itself can change lives, change your perspective on life, change how you view others. Not only is she involved in that, she's involved in helping those discover how they can be the best person they can be, discovering their own wealth, their own worth. She is an advocate for those who can't fight for themselves. She teaches them how to fight for others, fight like there's no tomorrow, and look good while they do it. She is a mother, an entrepreneur, and just an overall great person that we need. Yes, we need in our community. Please give it up for the queen. Yes, Rokea, what's up?
Thank you.
How was that? How was the intro? I always say, how was the intro?
That was a hell of an intro.
Was it okay?
I don't know. I feel like
Okay.
I forgot my cape somewhere. Okay. I don't know.
Like I always
But
say.
it was a wonderful description of really just I'm a humble community health worker and educator.
Yeah, superhero.
Say it humbly. I
Superhero.
mean, there are many of us doing this work, and I just have the privilege of being supported by my community and connected to those who are also powerful movers and shakers. And I feel really blessed to have essentially been on the front lines. Like, I can honestly say I feel like I've been on the front lines of fighting for my community and fighting for our rights in health, and essentially really examining the social determinants of health, what allows us to be well, not just when we're going to see the doctor, but also in our environment and in our families. And it's been really powerful to be a part of that process and to be welcomed into such a vulnerable time for families.
Yeah, this is a very special time. And before we get into that, let's rewind. You remember rewinding stuff, right? I don't know how old. I'm not gonna.
Okay, don't.
You know, have you heard of cassettes?
Yes, of course.
Well, that's why I didn't want to assume. And he's like, "How do you think I am?" You know. All right.
Did you put the tape on the corner so you could record over? Okay,
I
never
used
mind.
to do that.
Okay, I'm just saying. That's how old I am.
Oh,
Go
okay.
on.
But you look dazzling.
But I was
Come
I was
on.
still the baby sister.
Okay.
Witnessing these things. So
Yeah.
I'm not that old, but I'm old enough. I've
Old
been around.
enough. I like that. Old enough, but still young enough to learn.
Right.
Come
Always.
on. Stop.
Always.
Rokea,
Yeah.
where are you from?
Man, I am originally born and raised in this place
Where?
called the Seattle Pacific Northwest.
Okay.
Okay, so here's the thing,
Go.
right? Because when you're from the town, everybody's like, did you go to Garfield or did you go to Franklin?
Franklin.
And I'm going to be honest, I'm what my honey calls a all city girl.
Okay.
Meaning I've lived all over the town in different places,
Okay.
mostly south. I'm going to rep that I went to Evergreen High School.
Okay.
Woo woo.
No judgment.
I lived in the Dub C at the time, and
That's what's up.
it was a beautiful place to be, actually. It was very culturally diverse, way more than it is now. And so I grew up around a lot of different folks, and it was really beautiful and powerful to get to experience other cultures up close, and not in like a, what's the word, like amalgamized way, but like people were still authentically them. Like in Cambodian community, they were speaking Cambodian, they was doing their thing.
Right.
It wasn't like all of us meshed quite when I got there, but
Okay.
everybody was still rocking Tommy Hilfiger.
Of course.
You're right.
As they should. As they should.
Yeah.
That's-
But I
that's what's
also,
up.
I've lived a little bit. I lived in the CD as a little kid. I lived
You see how I
everywhere.
smile when you say
Yeah.
that? Yeah, CD.
I know,
stand up, let's go.
I was one of the first students at the African American Academy. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can't gloss over
Hey,
that. What's up?
We're worthy
Hey,
to
hey,
be
hey.
praised. You know?
Well, do that again. You have a nice voice. Say it. We're worthy.
Hey.
Okay.
No, the full. Come on now.
Are you gonna go ahead and?
We're worthy to be praised. Come on. Did you go to the academy?
I was banned.
Stop.
No, I wanted you to continue with the song, but that would have been nice. A nice treat. You're one of the first.
Yeah, of our first cohort of kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I went there for the first couple of years.
How'd you like it?
I really loved it.
Yeah.
I really loved it. It was like, man, it was really dope to be in a space where, because we also had like African drum and music class, and like they didn't have that in public schools at the time. And the academy was a public school; nobody had to pay to be there, so that was a beautiful thing.
That'd be nice if we could have more of that now.
Yeah,
that's one of the things I always thought about. It's funny how you have to pay for education. I know. Just like health insurance. I never understood that, right? I never understood
That's
like
a racket.
You have to pay. What?
I know.
I have to pay. That's part of my livelihood. Like I have to pay for health insurance. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the whole.
You would think if you want a thriving economy, then you would take care of the people that drive that economy. You would think.
There's a lot of things
That's true.
So Miss Rokea, and I love the earrings.
Thank you.
I was checking those out when I got. So okay, look at you. All fancy. Fancy coming from one of your mini jobs.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Now,
absolutely.
In the intro, I mentioned that you are involved in helping those bring life.
Yeah.
So, do you mind telling our audience about that? I know, but let's act like I don't.
Right.
So that's just one of your jobs. You have about 9 on the list, so go ahead with that one. Go.
Yeah. Stop. Yeah. Okay, so I'll get into the nitty gritty of what I do. Who am I? So I've worked as a birth doula, so a birth keeper, birth advocate. For almost 20 years, off and on, because being on call is a lot. But through that work, I later got trained into being what's called a community-based outreach doula, which is like a home visiting program.
Okay.
So that was like a 2-year-long program. The typical doula program is just for a few months. You connect with the family through the birth and kind of see them through the first few months of postpartum, and then you say your goodbyes. With the home visiting element to my work, that meant I got to stay with the family from the time they knew they were pregnant to basically till the time their kiddo turned 2. And that was a really beautiful experience because I got to become auntie that way and just, help with a lot of those, like support the early learning of that kiddo. And it was a really powerful experience. And a lot of my doula experiences is linked to my work at Open Arms Perinatal Services. I worked there for a long time, both as a volunteer and then later staff. But also I kind of launched from there and like got really excited about the more I stayed in the work, the more you figure out what needs to be done. And so from there, I decided to go back to school. I got my master's in public administration. And during my degree work, I got really excited about research and just the power, like in community work, we talk a lot about the power of the story. And what people don't realize is that translates directly to research. When people look at numbers or they're looking at graphs, that actually tells a really powerful story if you know how to use it. And the other powerful piece about that is I always explain to people that research is the language of the colonizer. To put it nicely, right? Like our large institutions want to see proof, they want to see numbers, they want to see data. The power of the story, unfortunately, is not always enough to compel large institutions to act. And so when we have evidence via research, that is how we can influence larger systems to move in the ways that we want to. It's another way to tell our story. And so, I launched from there, started my own organization called the Black Mamas Collective. And the Black Mamas Collective, as you know, I'm sure you can hear in what I'm sharing now, like education is a huge pillar for my work. Even as a doula, I'm like, I want to make sure you have all the information that you need. And really, there's so much information out there. My work became a lot of like helping people sort through all the information to find what's fact and to find what really works for them. So, you know, my work has become as a birth doula, community-based outreach doula, lactation consultant, birth educator. And really, those are all different names and certifications for what a real community-based community healer model has always been. So if we're able to go back and look at the work of the granny midwives, right? And these are the women who came up through slavery and continue to do their work for the whole community across the country, but that culture is really steeped in the South. Those women would come in, not only would they provide you education, they would attend your birth, but also they would prepare your whole home. You know, they would be telling you about environmental things. You know, the local midwife is often the local medicine woman. And so those are the kinds of practices and traditions and beliefs that I carry through my work. And over time, I still have a deep heart for direct service and really being with people. But, you know, as I said, the more I continued in this work, you start to see where the gaps are. And that's really pushed me full force into my role as a public administrator. And so currently I work at King County as the lead over the child care strategy team, which is the team that manages contracts for the King County subsidy so that families can get monies to pay for child care. And then also the wage boost that was just launched. So we are doing a demonstration project to show how public investment in our childcare providers is also beneficial for our community. So yeah, and I feel like childcare is kind of like that next on the spectrum of my work, kind of the next iteration, and who knows what'll happen next. But yeah, that's what I'm doing for now.
For now. Yeah, I like how you said that you've lived like 4 lives in your 25 years of life, or I don't know.
Yeah, I used to be a chef for a long time. I used to sing in a band. I used to do a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, that's what's up.
Yeah.
Wow. But when did you decide that you wanted to do that type of work? Because 20 years.
I know, right?
And it's amazing work, but did you always have this inkling of like wanting to help others, like is not only as much as possible, but in ways that sometimes we forget, ways that are neglected sometimes? Because when you listed off all of the things that a doula will take part in, I kind of got a chill, because that's something that I think within our culture, not me, of course, but
there's Papa doulas out there.
I know, and shout out to them. But that's something in our culture we've done for hundreds of years.
Absolutely.
Am I wrong for saying that?
You are more than correct.
Hundreds of years, even with no pay, you know?
No, it's just, that's what I meant when I'm like, it is just essentially a community care model. What we're doing is we're applying our spiritual and cultural practices to institutional system, right? Like we're applying those practices and you know, form fitting them into positions that allow us to get funding for them, that allow us to get licensure and recognition, that allow us to get insurance, all those things. We fit them into dominant culture and fit them into these systems. But it is absolutely a part of who we are. And I think I've said this to you before, but as long as there's been somebody birthing, there's been somebody to support them. Yeah. And, before we ran into having to create systems to care for people, we were just caring for each other. And we still can. We still are. We do. Right. And it shows up in this type of work is like one way that we're doing that. And when you talk to the average doula, like I know you had Maisha Mitchell on your show before. when you talk to the average doula, there are a lot of doulas out there who are spending money out of their own pockets. Sometimes there are doulas like myself. You can talk to my family. I drove around for many years with a trunk full of baby supplies, just so every time I pulled up to somebody's house, you need something? I think I got it. I think I got you. Right? Yeah. It's in my trunk. Hold on. I spent many years pulling stuff out of my trunk.
Wow. Now rewinding again, I was thinking back to the amazing event that I was able to attend, that you let me be a part of. I'll say it with my chest. That was so dope last year, and I can't believe the time's gone by so fast. I really didn't know what to expect because I got there a little bit early before a lot of people. Of course, you were there, but I was like, okay, how's this going to play out, right? So in between me, going back and forth, I started to see the room was filling up, and then it became like a family reunion. Mm-hmm. So I learned so much that day because there was so much brought to the table. Like I was hearing about other doulas and their experience and different age groups, right? Mm-hmm. So it was so dope. You had the OGs telling the next generation, the next generation, and just how important that your job is and to keep going. That was one of the things I kept hearing. And it was like a really open support group where all of you guys were like, look, I've been there. You're going to get through it. I was like you when I first started out. And it was like a sisterhood. And I'm sitting back like I'm trying not to. I'm like, this is so beautiful. Shout out to my mom. But, it was such an amazing community event. And everyone was comfortable because I think part of it was everything was open and honest and respectful. Like sometimes there's the misconception I'm honest and I can, be disrespectful. Right. But you guys had a way of not sugarcoating anything, but just being where anyone coming in could understand and say, oh, okay, these people really care. They're really about the work, and I could tell like people really wanted to be there. And I saw when the time was supposed to be up, people were still there. You kind of like, all right, we can go. All right, guys. But it was an amazing event. How many years have you done that?
Oh man, actually it's coming up. It's tomorrow.
Oh yeah, you said I wasn't invited this year?
You're welcome.
Is that what we're doing?
Here's the thing. Okay, so I've been doing this event I've been planning it for 7 years. We got disrupted by COVID. We decided not to have it that year, that first year of 2020. But man, I've been doing it for 6 years. We've actually been able to put it on for 6 years. And so what we're referring to, let me backtrack, is our Seattle celebration of Black Maternal Health Week. So this was a celebration that Black Mamas Matter, based in Atlanta, they got, they had it recognized through our government, and it's an official celebration. It's a full week from the 11th to the 17th every April. And when it first started, I was like, man, this is dope. Nobody's doing this. We need to do this. And so I got with my colleague, Christina, and we were like, let's just do it. And she was working for a peer support organization that hosts parent groups. And so we were like, well, between our two orgs, we already are connected to a community of folks that might be interested in this. And we just kept going, and we brought on other community partners over the years. And so this year I'm co-hosting. So it's Black Mamas Collective with Blackberry, which is a Black-ran, Black-led doula organization. And
Blackberry,
Jasmine Williams. Yes.
Shout out to Jasmine. She's going to be coming on the show very shortly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
I know people
so me
too.
And Jasmine,
I know
me and
people too. Hit me up yesterday.
Okay. Oh, boom. Yep. Okay. So Jasmine is incredible. Our Virgo powers unite.
Oh Lord.
Stop.
About you Virgos.
Wow. Whatever.
Cancer season all year. Go ahead.
But I do love y'all though.
Yep.
Whatever. Anyway, so our two orgs are getting together, and we're gonna host it together this year. It's gonna be at the Burien Community Center. So we try to pick different locations, make sure it's accessible to community, make sure there's parking that's free, and this event is free. This whole event is always free every year. Every year we feed people. We typically provide, I don't call it childcare. I call it supervised play.
Yes. Yeah.
Because we do expect you to feed and potty, help your child potty, but we take care of everything else. And yeah, we have a lot of amazing guests and educators come through.
I have a great question for you.
Yeah.
How many, as far as being a doula, how many children do you help bring into this world a year?
Gosh. Oh, shoot. It really varies.
Okay.
It really varies. There are some doulas who have like 8 to 10 births a month.
Okay.
That's a lot. Wow. A typical doula, if you want to stay sane, is like maybe 2 to 3 births a month. Okay. But the industry's changing over time. And so, and especially with the onset of hospitals creating their own internal doula programs is why you're seeing that like rapid, like doulas are like back to back to back births, which, you know, is an unfortunate thing. I mean, I know it works for people because they're able to have a living wage doing this work that way. Most doulas would probably identify as low income because it takes a lot of your time. You're not necessarily getting as much in return in terms of dividends. Mm-hmm. But people do the work because they care and they love it. Now that the industry is growing, there's, you know, more institutions creating doula programs. Doulas are able to live off this work and show up really powerfully in those hospital spaces for families. But yeah, it ranges. It depends on what you feel like your capacity is as the doula, and it ebbs and flows, which is why I've been off and on myself.
So how many have you done this year so far?
Oh no, I just had a baby. I haven't done any this year.
I heard you did. shout out to your baby. And
yes.
So
but typically for me, like what always felt good for me was like 1 to 2 a month.
Got it.
So we're talking about a year for me was like 12 to 15 births or something like that. That felt natural for me.
Okay, because you have your other job number 3. So we're checking the list. We got job 3. So we have 7 more. So job number 2, you mentioned earlier.
Working for the county. Or where?
Well, yeah. Well, I know where. Which one?
Yeah. Which job?
Where? Or
well, here's the thing.
Bakery job or the salon,
the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker job. Ooh. Right.
Dope.
Right. No. Yeah. So when you become a doula, it makes a lot of sense for you to also be able to support families with lactation. You're naturally going to be helping families with their birth plan and really figuring out what type of birth experience they want to have and what do they feel like they need at their birth. So naturally, you become a birth educator. And fortunately, I was in the right place and time where I had access to getting the right training and certification, things like that. There are folks out here they're doing this work and they don't have any of that. They are their grandmama's baby and they are following the birth traditions of their family, and that's it. And I think either path is great. It just so happened like I'm the baby in my family. There weren't a lot of babies coming around, when I was up and coming. And so how I learned about this work is while I was in college getting my undergrad, I took this health and human development course. And within that course, my professors thought it would be a good idea to bring in a midwife and a doula. And my mind was blown. I was like, midwives, what? They can do what? You can have a baby out of the hospital? Huh? What? And I just got really excited about the work. I've always loved babies. Always, my whole life. I was that kid. So to find out that this amazing work happens and you get to be around babies all the time was the exciting part for me. And I went to school in Olympia, and so I got linked with the group of doulas. At the time, it was called the Prison Doula Project, and they were the doulas going into Purdy, Washington, and working with the women in the women's prison there. And at the time, they were still shackling women to their beds.
Really?
Yeah. It's actually really recently that they they made it so that they can't do that anymore. But it was a hell of an experience.
Okay. So you working with the county, are you able to meet with a lot of do you meet with families that you've helped with their births? Or is this just...
You know what? There are a lot of times where families are really inspired by their experience with a doula and they become birth workers and educators themselves. And that's often how I get reconnected with families. But I also have some families who like never lose touch with me. A lot of my doula families were in my immediate community, so I get to hang out with my families and my babies. I was at their births all the time, which is a special gift. Not every doula gets that, but yeah, I'm tight knit with a lot of my peoples.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Want to ask you about, as far as education goes, and how Black women have been known to be treated while in the hospital giving birth, or just going to see their primary care provider. You know, there's so many stories where it's getting to the point it's kind of not normal if you don't hear a story or know someone who's experienced, you know, not being treated properly. You know, I've heard so many stories from women being misdiagnosed, you know, told you don't have something, and then later you realize you do. And why do you think that these things are still happening? Like, your stories are still being overlooked. And I know it's like probably a 10-hour conversation, but
I know I'm gonna try to
just give me like the
I'm
trailer.
trying to give you the right.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm gonna give you my little elevator speech about it. You know, unfortunately, I could say the short and the sweet is institutional racism, individual provider bias and racism. And I can even throw in there that in some instances you have providers, though they may be of a different race and culture, have good intentions, but there's just a huge cultural divide. And there are also a lot of perceptions and misconceptions about Black people and Black women. In our medical programs, you know, at institutions, local colleges, they are still teaching about stereotypes on how to treat people. And for a long time, it was in textbooks that Black people don't feel, that they complain of pain more than others, but they don't feel it as much as others. Other things about Native people will always want a spiritual leader in the room. These are real stereotypes that were in nursing textbooks. And so when they removed them from the textbooks, you still had old school nurses who became teachers, who still led with those kinds of practices. They were still teaching it.
Yeah.
That's what made sense in their mind. And that's the framework for how they were treating people. And, you know, what's sad about how our medical system has become very factory, right? It's, what's the word? The conveyor belt of let's get people in the door, out the door, in the door, out the door.
Just go.
Yeah. Means that we are missing a lot of that intentional and individual care that humans need, regardless of race. But again, you know, when we're dealing with institutional racism, those misconceptions about Black people being too loud, complaining too much, is why Black families in particular are experiencing limitations on how many family members they can have in a room and who can visit them. Yeah. You know how Black folks are. When there's a baby coming, there's probably going to be 20 of us there. Because we're that excited about this new person, and we want to be there to bless them and celebrate them. And it's a part of our culture, always right? Been, even when we track it all the way back to Africa, right? If you think about it that way, whole communities would be caring for and supporting this family. And when we disrupt that, right, we are disrupting the types of care and overlooking. Oh, when you have other people, your family in the room, they're like, she don't look right. She doesn't talk like that. She don't sound right.
Yeah, who knows you better than your family?
You look pale. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, unfortunately, in our medical systems, they're still having a hard time diagnosing skin conditions on Black people. It's just not really taught. When you look in textbooks, you don't really see us. And so it is a really deep, deep thing that's throughout the medical system. And it's crazy because particularly around reproductive health, which is why there's a conference out there now called the Mothers of Gynecology. And where they got that from is, well, everything we know about gynecology was because there were at least 12 women, 4 of them we know their names, that were practiced on, enslaved African women that were practiced on without any type of medicine or anesthesiology or any of that kind of care for their bodies. That's how we know everything about our reproductive health systems. And so it's crazy to be at the foundation of medicine in that way, and then to be essentially ignored or dismissed in the system today.
Yeah. Man, that was a lot.
I know.
I mean, it was a lot in a good way.
Yeah,
and,
it's
I
just,
appreciate you.
it's the history. I actually thought about going to school just to be a historian. You should. It's
You'd
so
be an
fascinating.
Awesome You'd be an awesome teacher.
I love it. Thank you.
If I had my kids get in trouble and you called home, and I'd be like, well, what'd you do? Because I would go back to that.
Because it's me.
Yeah.
No, I'm just
Miss Rokea said, well, boy, you shouldn't have been, yeah.
You know what, though? Gosh, I had a really good relationship with a professor at the University of Washington, and I had created this simulation where it basically is like a character simulation, and participants come, they pick a character, and they have to work out this birth scenario. And you have to decide what to do. And you still have to work within the constraints of the system. It leaves the participants to kind of sort that out. And my intention was for folks to kind of understand, these are where the pitfalls are. Gotcha. These are the pressure points and mistakes that we're making when we're deciding how to support families in labor. And so I've gotten to teach my simulation. I have a talk that I do with it and then run the simulation. And I've been doing that with UW medical students, with other doulas, other folks in community, and it's been really fun. Because we do need to have that dialogue. And what's unfortunate is that when you're in a room with just your provider, you're in a small room, and you're having to make these decisions on the fly, a lot of times you're in a lot of pain. And there's a lot happening, even for the provider. If you think about it from the provider's perspective, they may have 5 to 7 women or more in labor all at the same time. Right. And so, not to completely demonize providers, but we are creating a pressure cooker with our medical system.
Rokea, you were the best. Just in case I didn't tell you, you were the best.
Thank you.
And wow, we could do this for hours and hours and hours. We can go down the list. We can piss a lot of people off, but who cares? We'd educate in the same session. Can you please do me a favor?
Anarchy.
Yes. It's healthy. Can you let the people know at home, first and foremost, how they can reach you?
Of course.
And then let them know what you got going on. If you don't have anything going on, you can just tell them if they'd like to send you some money. I mean, whatever.
You can send me some money.
You okay with that?
I am.
Okay. Yeah, but let the people at home know how they can reach out and just learn more about Miss Rokea.
Thank you. Yes. So, I'm on all the socials, but mostly I live on Instagram. So you can find me on Instagram. And if you're interested in following Black Mamas and our community partners, folks we work with, then you can find us on Instagram at Black Mamas, but you'll see it's Black Mamas Collective. If you're interested in supporting us financially, we are on Venmo at Black Mamas Collective, and Zelle, Rokea Jones.
Say it again.
Don't make put my phone number because you can text me. No, I'm just playing. Follow Black Mamas Collective, and you can of course follow my work. You know what? I feel really blessed. I'm one of those people you can Google and you can see a lot of my projects, past and present. I love to connect with people. I love working on new projects. I'd love to make a documentary. I love...
Was that... You calling me out? You calling me out? Can I tell you something right now? Can I no, I'm being serious. Are you calling me out? Because last person who called me out... who was sitting in that chair, and we talked about a documentary. Yep. It was released. Let's not do that.
Okay.
Let's not do it. Shout out to Tickets
Hey.
DNA. Walk with faith.
Come on,
let's
come
go.
on,
Walk
come
by
on.
faith.
Come on now.
Tickets,
Come on
tickets,
now.
tickets. What's up? Well,
Yeah.
let's get it.
Yeah. Oh, come on. Tomorrow, April 12th, 11 to 3. We're having Black Maternal Health Week. Come through. If this taping is shown after that, it's okay. We have it every year. We love to have folks come on and plan with us and get us ready for the next year. The event's free as always. And we do our best. And we run this event on sponsorship, so we do our best to pay our peoples with what we get. But yeah, sponsorships are the way.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
And so are you. And I thank you. I'm serious. I thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. We've been trying to do this for a minute and we've been, in some of the same spaces and crossing paths. And I knew we were going to make it happen when it was time.
Right.
I knew you weren't just like, And, I know you had a lot going on. I had a lot going on. But we were like,
I was so pregnant.
But we was like, we going to do this.
This is gonna happen.
We going to get it. Man, listen.
Yeah.
And we did.
Yeah.
And we did. This is just part one.
Yes. I love this. Like, it's reciprocity. I get to support your work, support your podcast, Seattle Connected.
Tell them.
And I'm getting an opportunity to have my work uplifted and supported.
So
yeah, I love that. Thank
as we're talking about this right now, before we go, so documentary?
For real, I would love to do that.
Because we're going to play this back when it's done.
You have evidence
documentary?
now. It's stamped.
You guys hear that, right? Right now, 2025.
Wow.
What are we in? April?
Wow.
April 11th.
Wow.
Documentary coming out. I got this.
Okay.
Trust me. I'm a man of my word.
Okay.
I might be broke, but I have my word. I've always been a man of my word.
We live in a city of abundance. Let's get it.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Rokea.
you.
And I thank you guys for watching. Always. Like I say, it's important to take care of others, but please, please make sure you take time to take care of yourself. Until next time, stay connected. Peace.